Oasis Forum demands Hichilema withdraw Bill 7, constitutional crisis brewing in Zambia? Today, Zambia's civil society has spoken loudly, boldly, and without fear. The Oasis Forum has publicly told President Hakainde Hichilema to withdraw Bill 7 and instead prioritize something far more important, the long-delayed Bill of Rights. But why now? What exactly triggered this confrontation? And what does Bill 7 threaten or protect? This isn't just another political debate. This moment could reshape Zambia's democracy, human rights protections, and the balance of power for years to come. Stay with us, because what's happening behind the scenes is bigger than many realize. Good day, viewers. Welcome to another edition of InspirAfrica Official. I'm Nakash. Well, it's been quite a week across the continent, but today we're focusing our attention on southern Africa, where the winds of constitutional controversy are blowing strong through the heart of Zambia. Our lead story tonight: a nation stands at a crossroads. A president faces mounting pressure. And a coalition of churches says enough is enough. Picture this: the streets of Lusaka, where whispers of constitutional amendment have transformed into roars of resistance. Where men and women of faith, those who built their reputations on prayer and reconciliation, are now standing in the public square, their voices trembling with urgency, demanding that their president withdraw a bill that they say threatens the very soul of their democracy. What happens when the guardians of spiritual authority declare that a political leader has crossed a sacred line? When bishops and pastors, figures who traditionally counsel patience and prayer, instead issue ultimatums and deadlines? When they warn not of hellfire, but of a constitutional crisis that could unravel the fragile threads holding a young democracy together? What drives a president, elected on promises of democratic renewal, to push forward with constitutional changes that his critics say concentrate power in dangerous ways? Is this about securing stability, or about securing control? And what happens to a nation when the very document meant to unite its people becomes the battlefield that divides them? Can Zambia's democracy withstand this storm? Or are we watching the early tremors of something far more catastrophic? The Oasis Forum has drawn their line in the sand. President Hichilema must now decide: will he cross it? Factual foundation, background and timeline. The revelation came to light in recent weeks as the Zambian government moved forward with what it calls the Constitution of Zambia Amendment Bill No. 7 of 2025, commonly known as Bill 7. For context, President Hakainde Hichilema came to power in August 2021, defeating incumbent Edgar Lungu in what was widely celebrated as a victory for democratic change. Hichilema, a businessman turned politician, campaigned on promises of restoring constitutional order, fighting corruption, and strengthening democratic institutions. His supporters saw him as a breath of fresh air after years of what they viewed as creeping authoritarianism. But now, less than 4 years into his presidency, those same democratic credentials are being questioned. Bill 7 was officially introduced to Parliament earlier this year, ostensibly as a technical amendment to address various procedural and administrative issues within the Constitution. The government has positioned it as a necessary modernization, a way to streamline governance and close legal loopholes. However, as civil society organizations began examining the bill's provisions, alarm bells started ringing. The Ecumenical Advocacy Alliance of Zambia, known as the Oasis Forum, which comprises the Council of Churches in Zambia, the Zambia Episcopal Conference, and the Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, began raising concerns publicly in early November 2025. The Oasis Forum has historical significance in Zambia. This coalition of religious bodies has played a crucial mediating role during past political crises, earning respect across party lines as neutral voices of conscience. When they speak, Zambians listen. By mid-November, the Oasis Forum had reviewed Bill 7 in detail and arrived at a startling conclusion: far from being technical amendments, several provisions in the bill would fundamentally alter the balance of power in Zambia, potentially weakening checks and balances on executive authority. On November 21, 2025, the Oasis Forum held a press conference in Lusaka. What they announced sent shockwaves through Zambian politics. They were formally demanding that President Hichilema withdraw Bill 7 entirely. They gave him a timeline. They issued warnings. And they made clear that if he proceeded, they would view it as a direct assault on Zambia's constitutional democracy. The stage was set for confrontation. Direct evidence. During their November 21 press conference, Father Cleophas Lungu, spokesperson for the Oasis Forum, stood before cameras and delivered what can only be described as a pastoral rebuke. "We are deeply concerned," Father Lungu began, his voice measured but firm, "about the direction this government is taking with regards to constitutional amendments. Bill 7, as it currently stands, contains provisions that, we believe fundamentally undermine the democratic principles that Zambians fought so hard to establish." He continued, "This is not about politics. This is not about party affiliation. This is about the future of our democracy. We are calling on His Excellency President Hakainde Hichilema to immediately withdraw this bill from Parliament and to engage in genuine, inclusive dialogue with all stakeholders about any proposed constitutional changes." When asked by journalists what specific provisions concern them most, Father Lungu was direct. "There are clauses in this bill that would, essentially, concentrate more power in the executive branch. We're talking about changes to how judges are appointed, how the Electoral Commission operates, and provisions that could weaken Parliament's oversight role. These are not minor technical adjustments. These are fundamental changes to how power is distributed in our country." Bishop Andrew Mwenda of the Council of Churches in Zambia added his voice, "We want to be very clear. We are not opposed to constitutional reform. The Constitution is a living document and, yes, it may need amendments from time to time. But those amendments must be born out of broad national consensus, not rushed through Parliament without adequate public participation. And they certainly should not be designed to benefit whoever is in power at the moment." A journalist pressed further, "Bishop, are you saying President Hichilema is acting like a dictator?" Bishop Mwenda paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm saying that the road to authoritarianism is often paved with small steps that seem reasonable at the time. We've seen this before in our region. We've seen leaders who came to power promising democracy, only to slowly dismantle the institutions that limit their power. We're saying, Mr. President, don't take that road. History will not judge you kindly." Perhaps the most striking moment came when Father Lungu was asked about consequences. "What happens if the president ignores you?" Father Lungu's response was measured but unmistakable. "Then we will have no choice but to mobilize Zambian citizens. We will work with other civil society organizations. We will engage in peaceful protests. We will use every democratic tool at our disposal to protect our constitution." The Oasis Forum has stood with the Zambian people through previous crises. We stood with them when they demanded democratic change in 1991. We stood with them during contested elections. And we will stand with them now if our democracy is under threat. Meanwhile, government spokesperson Cornelius Mwitwa offered a very different perspective in a separate press briefing. The government is surprised and, frankly, disappointed by the Oasis Forum's characterization of Bill 7. This bill has been developed through extensive consultation. It has been reviewed by legal experts. The claims being made about it are, quite simply, exaggerated and, in some cases, false. The government remains committed to the rule of law and constitutional democracy. We invite anyone with specific concerns about the bill to engage through proper parliamentary processes, not through media sensationalism. When pressed about which specific claims were false, Mwitwa became less specific. "Well, the entire narrative that this bill is a power grab is just not supported by the facts. People need to actually read the bill rather than relying on selective interpretations by interest groups." Deeper analysis. So what exactly is in Bill 7 that has sparked such fierce opposition? According to legal analysts who have reviewed the bill, several provisions stand out as particularly controversial. First, there are proposed changes to the appointment process for constitutional court judges. Currently, the president nominates judges, but they must be approved by a 2/3 majority in Parliament. Bill 7 would reduce this to a simple majority, effectively giving the ruling party, which controls Parliament, almost unfettered power to stock the court with loyalists. Second, there are provisions affecting the Electoral Commission of Zambia. While the exact changes are technical, critics argue they would give the executive branch more influence over the Commission's operations and funding, a dangerous precedent in a country where electoral disputes have historically been volatile. Third, and perhaps most controversial, are clauses that would expand presidential immunity from prosecution and extend it to cover actions taken in good faith while in office. Opposition politicians and legal scholars warn this could shield presidents from accountability for corruption or abuse of power. The opposition United Party for National Development wait, that's actually Hichilema's party. The opposition Patriotic Front, the party of former President Edgar Lungu, has naturally seized on the controversy. PF Secretary General Raphael Nakasinda released a statement saying, "We warned Zambians before the 2021 election that Hichilema was not the Democrat he pretended to be. Now even the churches can see it." This is a president who promised to uphold the Constitution but is instead trying to rewrite it to serve his own interests. However, the fact that the criticism is coming from Edgar Lungu's party complicates matters. Lungu himself faced accusations of democratic backsliding during his presidency, including attempting to seek a controversial third term. Some Hichilema supporters argue that the opposition's complaints are hypocritical and politically motivated. Yet the Oasis Forum's involvement changes the calculus significantly. Unlike partisan political actors, the religious coalition has credibility across the political spectrum. When they speak, it's harder to dismiss their concerns as mere opposition propaganda. Legal expert Elias Munchia, a Zambian constitutional lawyer, weighed in on social media. The problem with Bill 7 isn't any single provision in isolation. It's the cumulative effect. Each change, by itself, might seem defensible. But taken together, they shift the balance of power in ways that could take decades to correct. Constitutional amendments should strengthen democracy, not consolidate executive power. Others, however, defend the government's approach. Political analyst Laura Mitty, while expressing some reservations, argued, "We need to be careful about catastrophizing every political disagreement." Yes, there should be more public consultation. Yes, some provisions need scrutiny. But the idea that Zambia is sliding into authoritarianism because of this bill seems overstated. We still have a functioning parliament, an active civil society, and regular elections. The international community is watching closely as well. Western embassies in Lusaka have quietly expressed concern about the bill, though most have avoided public statements. The Southern African Development Community has not yet weighed in officially. What remains unclear is how this standoff will resolve. President Hichilema has not formally responded to the Oasis Forum's demand for withdrawal. Parliament is expected to debate the bill in December 2025. If the government pushes it through over religious and civil society objections, it could trigger protests. If Hichilema backs down, it could be seen as a political victory for the opposition and a blow to his authority. There's also a deeper question at play here. What is the proper role of religious institutions in a constitutional democracy? The Oasis Forum argues they have not just a right but a moral obligation to speak out when democratic principles are threatened. But some voices, particularly in government circles, suggest that churches should focus on spiritual matters and avoid becoming political actors. This tension between prophetic witness and partisan interference is not unique to Zambia. Across Africa, religious institutions have played complex roles in political transitions, sometimes as democratizing forces, other times as instruments of division. What's certain is that Zambia is facing a genuine constitutional moment. The decisions made in the coming weeks could shape the country's democratic trajectory for a generation. Will this be remembered as the moment when civil society successfully defended constitutional democracy? Or as the moment when democracy began to erode, one bill at a time? Viewers, thank you so much for watching today's edition of InspirAfrica Official. This story in Zambia is far from over. As developments unfold, as parliament debates, as civil society mobilizes, and as President Hichilema makes his decision, we will continue to bring you updates and analysis. What do you think? Is Bill 7 a genuine threat to Zambian democracy, or are the concerns overblown? Should churches and religious organizations involve themselves so directly in constitutional politics? And what lessons does this hold for other African nations grappling with similar questions about constitutional reform and executive power? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a respectful, informed discussion about these crucial issues facing our continent. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories, more analysis, and more conversations about the Africa we're building together. Until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and keep inspiring Africa. This is Nakash, signing off. Peace.